We are asking the solution to a system of linear equation. To remind you, a system of equations is more than one equation, where the point X and Y, where the lines intersect. There are three types of solutions with a system of equations. Okay, we have no solutions. No solutions are parallel lines. Graphically, it looks like two lines that will never intersect. Algebraically, your variable is eliminated. Not x equals 0 or y equals 0. Your variable is eliminated. It's canceled out. Okay? You have a resulting statement. If your resulting statement is false, then you have no solutions. That's what it looks like algebraically. The second type of solution you have is infinitely many solutions. That is the same line, same equation. Algebraically, it will be a true statement when the variable is eliminated. So both no solution and infinite solutions, variable is eliminated, is canceled out. Meaning you would have opposite twins and it would cancel out on both sides of the equation. Okay. When you have one solution, so here at 3, 0, that's going to be approximately there. I have two lines that are intersecting at that single point. That point is that solution. Now, question number 3. They really like to give you this type of equation. Sometimes they'll give it to you like this, and they might give it to you as a table, or they might give it to you already graphed. You know you have a system because of the keyword two equations, and down here, system. Okay? When you see those keywords, then you know you have more than one equation. It's not just one equation. Okay? Now, you have one equation already graphed for you. We don't necessarily have to find the equation for that line. It gives us 2 points. So I'm going to go ahead and graph those 2 points. So I'm going to go to the point 2. Remember, this is x, this is y. So going to the right 2 units and then up 2 units. Then we have the point 8, -1. That's x, that's y. So that means I'm going to go to the right 8 units and then down 1 unit to give me -1. Okay, now let's talk about some of our answer choices, because a lot of these questions, especially when you get to the star in any test, you could answer through eliminations without doing a lot of work. Okay, I'm teaching you test taking strategies at this point. Okay, if I know that my line in general is going somewhat in this direction, that means I'm going to intersect somewhere in that area. That means I'm going to have one solution. So that means C is out because the lines are not parallel. They're going to intersect. And that means D is out because I know I'm only going to have one intersection. Now, let's talk about question E, or part E. It says the second equation is a y equals 1/2 x. There are 2 reasons that that is not our equation. The first reason is this has a y-intercept. If there's no plus constant number, there's no +1, +2, +3, +4, whatever, right? There's no number there. Then that means that that number is, that b value is 0. Clearly, if you look at this line, 0 is here. Is that line going to intersect 0, 0? No. So it can't be that equation of that line. The other reason that it's not that equation of the line, this equation has a positive slope. Our slope is clearly negative. It's clearly our y values, as the x is increasing, the y's are clearly getting smaller. Does that make sense? So we know E is out. Now let's talk about our answer choices A and B. This says positive 2, positive 2. That means the only solution to the system is at the intersection 2, 2. That means that point right there. Am I intersecting the other graph at 2, 2? So then can that be our answer choice? No, clearly not. So I've eliminated all the answer choices except for B. Now, let's talk about some more deeper understanding of what we did here. So that means my intersection is at negative 2, 4. And if you were to graph between those two lines, you would see that it goes straight in between those 3 points. You would also notice if you did your rise over your run, this has a rise of 3, and that's negative 3, and a run of 6, which gives you a slope of negative 1/2. That means I would go up 1 unit and I would do opposite day because we've already graphed the normal down 1, right 1 part of the graph. We need to graph the other part of the graph. So that would be up 1, or left 2, up 1, left 2. So again, we graphed it using our rise of our run to that point. Does that make sense? Okay. So we've talked about 2 different ways to talk about tackling that question. Now let's look at number 4. So number 4 is very similar to what we did on number 3. Do I need to give you a second to pause? Or y'all good? Okay. Again, just like number 3, we're going to plot these 2 points. So I've got negative 3, 6. And if I were speeding on a test, I would say, oh, wait, there's 3, negative 6. I'm done. You would get this wrong. Because this says the only solution to the system. If you notice, if you were to plot 9, 2, that also lies on the same line, which means if it's the same line, we have infinite solutions. If you were to do your rise of your run, you would see that you would graph over the same line between those 2 points. Does that make sense? And even though it says select all that apply, okay, so one more option. So let's find and identify our slope. Our slope is down 1, right 3. So that means your B value is negative 1/3. You also have a y-intercept of 5. If you notice, in the case of this, you do have the matching y value. So the equation of that line is given to you. So this one, you would select both I and J. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? On the one above, we eliminated everything. So B would have been the only one we would select. But on this one, we would only select I and J. We know that there's no real solution. And we would not select F and J. Even though negative 3, 6 is a solution, the wording right here where it says the only solution knocks that answer choice out. Does that make sense? Okay, we're going to go to number 5. We're using substitution. To remind you, we want to substitute. In this case, we have the x value. So I want to select my x value. We're replacing x with 2y minus 4. And we are only replacing the x value. So on question A, or answer choice A, the reason A is eliminated is they replaced negative 5x. They didn't replace just the x, they replaced the whole term. And the reason that B is not our answer choice, they replaced y. Also notice I still have 2 different variables. If you do the substitution correctly, you only want one variable in your substitution. So B is out, A is out. Now, if you notice, C is done correctly. We replace the x with 2y minus 4. Therefore, we would distribute the -5. The 8y is still there. The equal sign is still there. The 12 is still there. So our answer is most definitely C. In D, they replaced the whole 8y term. So that is completely wrong. Okay? Any questions? All right, number 6. It tells us we want to multiply the second equation. This is our first equation. This is our second equation. By what number so that we eliminate the x variables? Your x variables are 6 and 3x. Remember, you want opposite twins, opposite signs, and same numbers. So how do I turn the 3 into -6? What do I need to multiply that by? -2. So we would multiply the whole equation by -2. So our answer there would be -2. That straightforward, that easy. Okay, the second part, we want to multiply the first equation, that's this one, by a number that will eliminate the y variables. Okay, so what I've got -2 and -8. That means I need to turn that -2 into +8. So what would I multiply -2 by to turn it into +8? These negative and a negative make a positive. So we need to multiply by a negative number. What do we multiply 2 to give us 8? What number? So we're eliminating these two. It says the y variables. 4. So that would be -4. Does that make sense? Okay, this next word problem, I want you to change the number of coins to be 850 coins. Okay, notice we have a total count and a total amount or total cost. Okay, we have a value and a cost. When you have a value and a cost, you want one to deal with the value and one equation to deal with the total count. Okay, if you notice, the one dealing with the total account on both of these equations is correct. N plus D equals 850. We need to define our variables. So N is representing the nickels, N for nickels, and D for dimes. Wake her up. You gotta change it. You gotta change it. That's why I told you to change it to 850. You have 50, change it to 850. Okay? Okay, now, what are nickels? How much are nickels worth? Nickels are worth 0.05 cents. Dimes are worth 0.10 cents. That means the cost, 0.05, needs to be with the N, and the 0.10 needs to be with the dimes. So that is the equation that we want to use. So we are not going to use this equation. Now, we're going to go ahead and solve and find the number of dimes and nickels that we have. So, do we want to use substitution or do we want to use elimination? Which one do we want to use? Either one works. Pick one. Substitution or elimination? You want to do substitution? Okay, in order to do substitution, you have to solve one of these equations for a variable. I'm going to do the second equation for a variable. Let's just do nickels. So that means I'm going to subtract D from both sides. So N is going to be equal to 850 minus D. We then want to substitute the nickels for nickels for N. So I'm going to rewrite that top equation. So that becomes 0.05 times. We're going to do 850 minus D. Don't forget the rest of the equation. Plus 0.10 D equals 8120. Now, we have only the variable D, so we did the substitution portion at least somewhat correctly. So I'm going to distribute 0.05 times 850. Make sure you put 0.05. Don't put 0.5. You want to do 0.05 times 850. That gives me 42.5. Negative times a positive is a negative. 0.05 D. Add 0.10 D equals 8120. We okay so far? Any questions on what I've done? We can combine like terms. These right here, that becomes 42.5 plus 0.05 D equals 81.20. We're going to subtract 42 from 81.20. That's going to give me 0.05 D equals 38.70. Divide by 0.05. That gives me 774 dimes. That means if I take 850 and take that away from the number of dimes, that gives me 76 nickels. Okay, backside. Wake her up. You need to stand up. If you cannot stay awake, you need to stand up. If you cannot stay awake, you need to stand up. Okay, Albert scored. Albert equals to 37 fewer. When you see 37 and then fewer, it's a turnaround phrase, meaning that the number that came before is what's negative, not what comes after. Then that's plus double David's score. That's 2 times on the algebra exam. Their scores totaled 167. It says let A represent Albert's score. So defining the variables, this is Albert. D is David's score. So that means the first equation that I have, I'm literally just writing down what I diagrammed. So A, Albert, so A is equal to negative 37 plus 2. We said David is D, 2D. Their scores together. So A plus D equals 167 points. Any questions? If you were to solve this, I would use the substitution method. I would literally take 37 plus 2d. So in other words, I would take the minus 37 plus 2d and substitute it in for a. So this would become minus 37 plus 2d plus d equals 167. Combine like terms. That gives me minus 37 plus 3d equals 167. Add 37 to both sides. That gives me 3d equals 204. Divide by 3 gives me 68. So David got a 68 on the exam. That means Albert got a what? 99, basically. Everybody understand how I did that? Any questions?